Hottie, I got to race a couple of weekends ago.
And that feels good, doesn't it? I heard it was the 12 hours of Mesa Verde, right?
Yeah. Back in 2019, Lisa and I signed up for the 2020 12-hour race in the duo geezer category, meaning two people with a combined age of at least 100, which we qualify for. Of course, that race didn't happen, but they did defer us to 2021. And after 18 months of no racing, I got to tell you, Hottie, it felt so great to finally get out, see other riders, and compete.
Yeah, I got in an event too this spring, and it did feel good. So, Mesa Verde, which is green table, how did that go?
I had such a great time. The racing was fun. The course is 16 miles of incredible single track I'd never seen before, and I really learned a lot, and I confirmed a lot that I had suspected. And one of those things is that I am just a straight up fan of Floyd's recovery mix. Honestly, Hottie, it is the breakout product from Floyd's for me. You know, I've been using it after most every training ride, but in this race, after each lap, you know, pretty much a 90-minute all-out effort for me. Before I did anything else, before even getting out of my chamois, I would tear open a single-serve vanilla Floyd's recovery mix, put it in a shaker bottle with a cup of cold water, you know, shake it a bunch to get it good and blended, and then just drink that down. That was a fast 174 calories with 25 milligrams of CBD, which helped with inflammation a bunch, which mattered by around lap 3. I had no stomach issues the whole day, and this quick shake helped me stay on top of the calorie debt that I otherwise get as the day goes on and the laps build up. And since these single serve packets are measured for just the right amount, I was able to get this done really fast, which gave me some time to relax and recover and clean my drivetrain and, you know, change into a fresh kit in the short time I had until it was my turn to do my next lap.
Especially after a hard effort like a race, whether you have another lap coming up or you're done for the day, Floyd's Mix is a fast way to get on the road to recovery. And the single serving packs are a really easy way to recover on the go. And our listeners can get a great discount on Floyd's Recovery Mix as well as the other Floyd's of Leadville products. Head to floydsofleadville.com, use that code FATTY, and get a 15% discount.
Yeah, and thanks to Floyd's of Leadville for getting me through the 12 hours of Mesa Verde, and as always, for being the title sponsor of this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It is season 4, episode 8 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, high to the most.
And I'm Fatty, and as I was just talking about in our Floyd's promo, I had such a great time racing last weekend, Hottie. I don't feel like my fitness is where it could be, but you know what? My happiness at lining up, going all out, and then just completely giving everything I had to give, I hadn't realized what a huge hole, you know, in my personality, you know, this part of what I do has been, Hottie. I'm now more excited for Leadville than I have been in a long time. Lisa's feeling the same way. Before the race, we had kind of started saying things like, yeah, you know, maybe we're done racing hard. Maybe we just go to races and have fun. And I think that that's true to a degree, but racing is still a very important aspect of who I am and what I do. And actually attending a race, that lit a fire under me. I am excited to actually not just go to a race, but to really race at a race.
All right, so you raced. That means race report time. How did you and the Hammer do?
We did great. We set a goal of getting in 8 laps in 12 hours, which according to the race rules meant that the 8th lap had to start by the beginning of the 11th hour. Otherwise, you're done, you know, and it was close. I was the first racer, which meant that I was also the one doing the 7th lap. And that meant I was watching my elapsed time very closely on the final lap. And I got Lisa the baton with about 3 minutes to spare. But we did it, and we wound up taking 4th in the geezer duo category, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I love that format where you got to finish just in time. You better finish or you're not going to get that last lap underway. So it's a 24-hour format too, the 24-hour endurance format. They do the same thing. It's a really cool way to run a race. You also mentioned at the top of the show that you learned a lot during this race.
I really did. I learned something that should have been super obvious to me. I've been riding and racing for 25 years now, but this has never been something that occurred to me until this couple of weekends ago. And that actually makes me this episode's feed fail.
All right, before you tell us what your fail is, let's remind our listeners what a feed fail is. We are partnering with our longtime sponsor, The Feed, to create the new show segment, Feed Fails. Text or call in your feed fails, a 1-minute story about how you got your nutrition spectacularly wrong in a racing or training situation, to the Leadville Podcast Hotline, 719-453-1514.
So here's the mistake I have been making forever, Hottie, including at several Leadville Trail 100 races. I'm always talking in this podcast and elsewhere about how important it is to fuel constantly, basically Martin gel at the top and bottom of the hour for me. And then I nurse an energy drink like Martin 160 constantly. But when it's time to eat, I, of course, look down the trail, think about what's coming up. And if it's going to be technical soon, I will generally pass on eating until I'm at a place where I can get the whole gel down. And that, Hottie, is my feed fail. Before I get to my aha moment, though, I kind of want to ask you something. If you're failing the same way, what is your process for getting a gel down during a race, start to finish?
Yeah, I think what you're identifying here is the difficulty in feeding your face during off-road events when you're bumping and grinding. You have obstacles coming up, and you're like, damn, do I reach for food now and risk, some kind of weirdness happening, or, do I stay on point with my feeding? How do I get this done? Here, my strategy, and particularly at Leadville, was to carry, for gels in particular, a gel flask. Those things, I think triathletes love these things, and I don't know why they've got their hands on them first. But the gel flask, you put all your gel or much of your gel in one of those plastic flasks, and you carry it in your back pocket. And then one of my keys I found out, too, with carrying the gel flask is I always carried it upside down. Not so the gel would just pour out into my pocket. Obviously, the top would be closed, but upside down. So when I pulled it out, all the gel was right at the valve. So when I popped it open, I wasn't trying to squeeze it out of that half-empty gel flask. It would just come pouring out and into my mouth. So gel flask was my way of quickly getting at least energy gel into my system.
Yeah, I think that is a really good strategy. Of course, we could have a conversation about anyone who races Leadville has seen gel flasks lying on the ground. And so if you lose a gel flask, it's worth, that's 500 calories that you thought you had that you no longer have. So you got to be careful putting those things back that you don't lose them if you're going to go with those. But your idea about keeping them upside down in your jersey pocket is brilliant, not just for making sure that the gel is near the valve, but because when you reach in and pull it out, that is a natural place so that the valve is at the end, is not in your hand, because you want the valve to be in your mouth. So very, very smart. My approach is kind of similar. I do it with gels upside down in my jersey pocket. I take a gel out, tear the tab off most of the way with my teeth, squeeze it down, make sure I get it all in, and then I roll from the open end to the bottom and tuck it away, usually lately in the side pockets in my DNA shorts, bib shorts. I've done this hundreds of times, and I'm pretty fast at it. I don't waste anything this way. It's been a pretty good strategy, but it is slow for racing. And it wasn't until the third lap that I realized I was waiting for too opportune of a moment to take a gel. That if I tore it fast, did one big squeeze and tucked the messy thing into my jersey, I could get about 90% of the gel down in about half the time. And racing just really isn't the time to be frugal with your gels.
Yeah, that's right. In training, fine, get every last drop, but also practice your race approach to eating. The fastest way you can go from time to eat to done eating.
Yeah. And in a technical course like the 12 hours of Mesa Verde, where it was truly rare for me to have more than 10 seconds of eating time to figure this out, that became truly important.
And there are portions of the Leadville Trail 100 where this is true as well. Sugarloaf Climb, Power Line up and down, the Goat Trail and Columbine. Learn to get your eating done in the 5 to 10 second spurts, and you'll find you have many fewer delayed or missed feeds.
Just a really good strategy. Don't worry about getting every last drop. Do it fast, put it away, be a little messy, and you'll be able to eat more often. Send us your feed fails to the Leadville Podcast hotline, 719-453-1514. If we use your feed fail on the show, our friends at the feed will send you a nice little prize, a very nice box of assorted products from the feed. I guess they owe me one. You might find what you need in that box, exactly what you need for a banner day in Leadville. Our guest in this show is one of a few names suggested to us by Brian Fedema at Cycles of Life, who I should mention bought me a pizza at 12 Hours of Mesa Verde a couple of weekends ago. Man, I'm tying everything into that race. He's such a nice guy. Anyway, we asked Brian who the local Leadville legends are when it comes to racing the Leadville 100, and Heath Speckman's name obviously came up.
Now, Heath is a modest guy, but he has some amazing stories. His life before Leadville alone could fill an episode. And we get into some of that in this episode. But the Leadville stories are true gems, from stumbling into the race to gold buckling to crazy local challenges. Heath has got a million of them.
Heath, welcome to the Leadville Podcast. Man, I don't even know where to start. You have done so much.
Well, first I got to say I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's an honor. You've had quite the crew this year, and I don't know if I compare to those guys, but I'm excited to share some of my stories with you guys today. And again, it's an honor. Thank you.
So just in case anyone actually believes Heath when he says he doesn't think he can measure up, here are a few things we're going to be talking about today, Hottie. Heath has tried to do the Leadman. He has done an Everesting challenge up and down Columbine. He has done the 100,000-foot Leadville challenge last year by doing the race every week for a couple of months. This guy, honestly, I just can't even believe this. And that is just even barely to start. Hottie, do you think we're going to have a hard time filling up this interview?
And he's a sub-9 guy at the Leadville Trail 100, right?
Yes.
Plus, there's this extensive military career, and he serves us every day as a state trooper in Colorado. Geez, Heath, what else? Do you cook? Do you clean? Do you scrub floors? Can you, I don't know, deliver a baby? What else can you do, buddy?
My wife sure wished I could cook and clean a little better. Needs improvement.
That's just the overview of why we were so excited to get you on this show. But why don't we back up a little bit? Tell us, where do you come from? What's your history? And how did you get into bike racing in Leadville, Colorado?
Sure. Yeah, I'll roll through that. Well, I'm originally from Southern California, and my parents moved us as kids to Colorado Springs. So a lot of my memory is based off of living in Colorado, which was really the introduction point for me to mountain biking. We had a youth group at our church that was pretty involved with that sport, and so that was something we did often. And we had a group of kids that went out, mostly during the summer, but probably every weekend. And we would hit up trails, and like I mentioned to you before, we really enjoyed more going downhill than uphill. So I wouldn't consider myself so much of an athlete on the side of mountain biking, more just like bombing down hills. And it was just a fun hobby for us. I played some football in high school, and then right after high school, I joined the Air Force. I continued mountain biking throughout my time in the Air Force. I was in for just about 10 years, but continued on just more of a hobby. I got out of the military in 2010. So I joined in 2000, got out in 2010. My wife and I ended up opening up a CrossFit gym.
And you met your wife in the Air Force, right?
I did. Yep. So
that's awesome.
So I got out. She was still in, and so we stayed in Massachusetts, and while we ran that CrossFit gym, and that was just a wonderful experience. Met some wonderful people, and kind of hit it off with a couple mountain bikers too. So I was able to keep that hobby going and continue to enjoy it through that time. In 2016, my wife brought up moving to Colorado to be closer to my family, which took no convincing at all. That was just kind of always a dream of mine after joining the military. I always wanted to come back home. And she brought that up as an opportunity. So we didn't hesitate. And that happened really smoothly. It took some time, to exit Massachusetts and get a life started in Colorado. But it went pretty smooth. I ended up with that position in the Colorado State Patrol. And they work kind of like the military, where you're kind of sent where you're needed. And Leadville was where they put me. I can't say it was on my first choice or my top 3 list, but yeah. So
when they say you don't choose Leadville, Leadville chooses you. In this case, it was literally true.
Yeah, they reached all the way out to Massachusetts and brought me into Leadville.
Yeah, your dad was in law enforcement as well, right? He was with a SWAT team in Southern California, I would imagine, and there in Colorado. And so, tell us what you do as a state trooper around Leadville. Like, would we see you normally if we were in Leadville in a car, or what do you do there as a state trooper?
Yeah, we mainly patrol state highways and interstates in the area. I work a lot of I-70. So if you're coming in from Denver or from the west and you're on I-70, I work a lot of that portion there. And hopefully you don't see me if you in person, at least. Maybe down the road you can wave to me, but if I have to introduce myself by that earlier government name that I gave you, then it might not be the greatest situation. But yeah, mostly state highways and interstate type of work.
So what's the special sign that we need to give you so that if you do pull us over, that we know that it's like, hey, one Leadville racer to another, everything's okay.
Like a secret handshake,
yes,
maybe?
I want that. What's my secret handshake?
I think we need to work on that.
Okay, we'll talk offline on that one. That could be good.
Sounds good.
So you get stationed in Leadville, and then how did you discover the Leadville Trail 100 once you were there? I mean, was it obvious, or did you have to search it out?
No, so it came back. My wife had read the book Born to Run. And so that's where she was exposed to Leadville and was familiar with the races and the race series and knew that there was a mountain bike. I didn't really know much about it at all, to be honest. And so she brought up, hey, there's a lottery process that you can sign up for to get into the mountain bike. And she knew that obviously after all the years together, that was pretty big into mountain biking, but never really raced or anything. And but she was new to it. And she wanted to get started with it via the Leadville 100, which I thought was pretty crazy. But at the same time, she said the word lottery, and I was like, well, I'll never win any sort of lottery. Yeah, go ahead, put our names in if it'll make you happy. And and whatever time later, it comes out that she said, hey, we got into the race. And
You both got in.
We both got in. So I was pretty surprised. And even more surprised when I looked at my bank account and realized how much the race cost, because I didn't know that part either.
Yeah, the race is not cheap. So the first time you did Leadville, both your wife and you did that. Now, this is new to me. I'm, of course, always very interested in people's first Leadville race story, because that seems to be something that just really, stamps itself on our minds. And so I'm interested, how was her first Leadville race, and how was it for you as well?
Sure. Yeah, she impresses me. Being a brand new to the sport in general, new to everything about high elevation, new to Colorado. She's from Rhode Island originally, so there's so much new stuff. And I sensed no fear in her at all. Like she was just ready to go after it. And so really impressive. However, she didn't quite have the legs in her to finish that year, and she got cut off at Twin Lakes. So I think she missed it by 20 or 30 minutes at Twin Lakes outbound.
But she went out and went after it. I love that. And how about you? How'd your first Leadville go?
Well, I got the buckle, the finishing buckle, not the big one. I believe it was around 11 hours and 37 minutes. And it was extremely tough. Yeah. I had very little training going into it, and it wasn't really, unfortunately, it wasn't really an exciting summer for me to prepare for it. It was just, I just didn't know anything about it, and I enjoyed mountain biking as a hobby. And now it was something I had to do to train and work hard for. And I had to start climbing hills and, and it was just, I just ended up surviving it, at the end of the day. But I finished.
But then, of course, you caught the bug, right?
Yeah. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. So yeah, the following years we got in again, and this time I kind of understood the process and I knew what I was getting myself into. However, still lacked any sort of experience with training or preparing for anything like this. And I've always been like, wow, I got a 10-mile ride in type of day. And that was a big day for me. And so I really had to try to change that mindset. I prepared a little better, but overall for 2018, I only trained maybe a couple hundred more miles throughout the entire summer getting ready for it, but it helped, and I shaved some time off in 2018.
At this point, you're living in Leadville as well?
Correct.
Yeah, and are you out riding the course for training, or what's the drill in the early days?
Boy, I don't even know if you would call it training, but I had a couple of people that I knew that had done the course before, and I think I was exposed to Columbine as maybe a potential training type of ride where I threw that in once or twice, but not too much on the training side.
And then 2019 comes, and you're going, well, I've done this a couple of times. I need a new challenge or something. Because tell us what you did in 2019.
Well, I got to blame my wife again on this one. I think about maybe I should lower my life insurance. I don't know what her plan is here, but registration for 2019 happens late 2018. So my wife brought up, why don't you try the Leadman Challenge? And I knew what it was at this point. But up to that point, not only did I think a 100-mile bike ride was crazy, I thought a 100-mile run was just not even a thought. Like, that's impossible. I would never want to do that. And so she brought it up, and I don't know, something about the word challenge kind of made me think, oh, well, maybe. But we didn't really finish that conversation, just kind of let it go. It's kind of a silly thought. And then about a week later, she said, oh, by the way, I signed you up for Leadman, which is a no lottery process. They just sign you up and you're in.
Yeah, it's the most sure way you can get into Leadville, or at least it was at the time. Now, I want to ask, what is your running experience leading up into 2019? Because not everyone will necessarily know that the Leadman, in addition to the bike events, has a marathon, an optional 50-mile run, and then the 100-mile course, which is different than the Leadville 100 mountain bike course, but every bit as much climbing, just as far. And
the 10K. Don't forget the 10K after the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race, which I've done, Fatty. Come on, you got to step up.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Well, I've done it with Heath, in fact, in 2019. He and I raced together.
We were there.
So running experience, Heath, what do you got? What do you have in your legs going into 2019 as a runner?
Less than biking. And so, not a lot. I did some competitions in the military, and that, there was some ruck marches and obstacle course type stuff, and, maybe a 3-mile run here and there type of thing. So, dating back to high school, it was, just football, whatever running is included in football. I never did cross country or track and field or anything like that. So I've never really considered myself a runner.
So tell us about your running experience in 2019. And in fact, give us the short version. I mean, with only an hour, we can't do true justice to your Leadman experience, but we can at least we can at least hear the highlights, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, that was so. I think what happened on the mountain bikes in 2017 and 2018 was I just knew I could do it, and that's probably why I didn't really take training too serious. However, with Leadman, that was like, oh wow, I really have to train for this. So as soon as I found out that I was registered, I began running, and that was almost 2019. So around Christmas time or so, I probably started running. I think I worked myself up to a 9-mile run. And I was feeling pretty proud of that. And I was thinking, okay, that was really hard, but I have time to work on this. So to kind of get off track here a little bit, 2018, I started dirt bike racing and doing hare scrambles and Grand Prix style racing. I had a pretty good year, and I decided to go up a class in 2019. And to kind of keep the ball rolling, what a friend and I decided to do is to go down to Arizona for a dirt bike race, and the first weekend in January of 2019.
I sense an injury coming. I'm just going to say an injury coming.
Yeah. You're in your mid 30s, you start dirt bike racing. That's what everybody does. Uh-huh. So, first lap of that race, I jumped a triple jump short and landed on the face of it. I had enough time in the air to think, this is not good. This is going to hurt. And I was right. I hit the ground really hard. I hit my head on the handlebars, and it threw me off the bike.
Wow.
I shook my head, got back on the bike, and decided that was hard. And I was like, all right, got to get my head back in the game. I got a race to finish. I started going, and I couldn't shift anymore. My ankle wouldn't move. I felt my neck was wet, so I touched that, and there was blood from my chin rolling down my neck. And I was like, I think I'm done.
So what was the injury status here? Your ankle, it sounds like you had a concussion. It sounds like maybe a broken jaw. I mean, what was the total there? Well,
initially it was just a sprained ankle and some stitches.
Oh.
And so I went on living that thought for about 5 or 6 weeks, going to physical therapy, trying to repair a sprained ankle. And, after over a month, my foot was still swollen and purple every day. And I thought, there's something else here. So I decided to go see a specialist. And they did an x-ray, and they said, oh, yeah, you have multiple fractures and a displaced talus. We need to cut you open and fix this. So I felt like, there was 5-6 weeks of recovery down the drain. It's time to start that all over again. And this is like mid-February now.
Oh, boy. So at this point, did you pull the plug on the Leadman? I would have said, okay, well, that's unfortunate. And there's always 2020 for sure. What could go wrong then? But what was your thought process as far as what to do next and what to keep and what to discard?
I had no hesitation that I wanted to still complete Leadman. It was not even a second thought.
You are a hard-headed man. Is kind of what I'm starting to hear.
Yeah, and the thought too is, I think some time in the military, and that experience there, you don't know if 2020 will be here for us. That's kind of my thought day by day, and I had a little speed bump here, but it was definitely I was gonna plow forward. I didn't know how it was gonna work, but. It was in my mind. I was still going to do it.
And how did it turn out? So give us a quick highlight of the events you did and how things turned out for Leadman.
Well, the nice thing is with the ankle is the primary injury, and boot and cast and going through all that, I can still pedal. So I had an indoor trainer, and I think I had no brake at all in the bike. It was obviously all indoor stuff, but I continued bike training. I was able to run my first mile April 1st. Went out there and was released from physical therapy to go try that. So I did. I ran a mile, and it took me 14 minutes. I probably paid the price for the next few days of limping. And
that's 2 months before the marathon.
Correct.
right? Okay. So you've gone a mile.
Yeah. And I figured that was a start. So it was just one of those things where you think I just got to put one foot in front of the other. And I went about it like that. So started building miles.
How did the marathon go?
It was very painful. But I finished, and I finished it under the time cap, and that kept me in the fight. So that's kind of how 2019 was looked at, was, I'm going to do everything as fast as I can. And it's not going to be fast. I just had to realize that. And, but I got through the marathon.
Amazing.
Yeah. And for the 50s, if the listeners don't know, you have the option to do one or the other or both. And due to my condition and due to like my lack of running prior history, I figured doing both wasn't smart for me. Mm-hmm. So initially I signed up before the injury. I was like, no way, I want to run 50 miles. So that kind of worked out well for that too. And then with the injury, I was thankful that I didn't do the 50-mile run also. But the biking stuff went well, which was the next in the Leadman series, the 50. And with all the bike training I had done, and I believe that helped strengthen the ankle too in that position, I was able to finish the Silver Rush 50 with a time. I don't recall my time, but it put me in the what's the corral behind blue or behind silver? I mean, is it blue?
It's red. Yep,
red. That's it. So I had a time that put me in the red. Yeah. So the bike training was going really well. And then the 100 bike that came up in 2019 is when I got in at 8:28. So I'd cut over 2.5 hours off my prior year. So I was pretty amazed if you actually train for this, and you can do really well if you put some effort into it.
Was it as simple as that? This was your third time racing the Leadville 100. You knocked off basically a quarter of your time. Is it just that this is the first time you'd really trained for it?
It really was. Yeah, because in the prior years, it was more of just I'll finish it, and I'm too stubborn to quit or too stubborn to not accomplish that goal. But this year I was like, well, I'm going to apply that to my training, and it paid off.
Awesome. And so you finished the Leadville 100, and you've got now 1 week until the Leadville 100.
Oh, you missed the 10K, yep. Fatty, again. You did the 10K, right, Heath? And you had a great race. It was key to your whole Leadman experience.
Yep. I finished the 10K.
Very good. And, it rained that morning, remember? It was dumping rain. Yep. And I thought, oh my God, it's raining like crazy. And as soon as we got to the start line and down 6th Street, it stopped raining. And it was a beautiful day to run a 10K.
It was. It was just the start that was cold and everybody was underneath tents. Mm-hmm. Or trees.
Now that's a story, Fatty. Come on. You got to play that part up. That 10K, it's big.
Oh, the 10K episode is coming up, starring Hottie. But I do want to hear how your effort went. You're still coming off a very injured leg, and you were trying to run. I mean, you went from painfully completing a marathon to trying a 100-mile running race, and having watched people who entered that race in great condition leg-wise and with a lot of running experience. I'm talking about my wife here, and still having an incredibly rough day. How did you do?
Well, I didn't finish. Well, yeah, so I did as much training as I could to prepare for that, which wasn't a lot. Mm-hmm. And late start on training and dealing with an injury too. So I just wasn't able to accumulate a lot of miles that year. But
how far did you go?
I made it to the outward bound aid station inbound. So it was about 77 miles. I think it was 23 hours and 15 minutes was the total time, because I believe that cutoff's at hour 23 at 3 a.m. in the morning. So not
everyone will know the Leadville running course, mm-hmm. but what you did in that amount of time, I mean, let's just discount. I mean, yes, there was more to finish. You went an extraordinary distance and did all but one of the very hardest climbs and distance in that race. I mean, that you were able to do this much is pretty amazing, Heath. I mean, you got to give yourself a fair amount of credit for what you did do.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I learned a lot. I didn't give myself very much credit. I was pretty disappointed that I didn't finish it. And honestly, a lot of that disappointment came before the cutoff, just feeling my body fade, my mind fade, going through that in the middle of the night. It's cold, you're shivering, and you think, gosh, I get there on time. I got to do another marathon. And so I was cut off. They cut my bib off, but at the same time, hours before reaching that point, I also felt myself quitting. So that's where I struggle with. And so that's what I'm looking for some redemption coming here soon, hopefully.
All right, we got 2 Leadman right here. Leadman, that's right. Make some noise for Sean McLaughlin and David Speckman. Leadman. This is race number 3 in the series. They're getting out tomorrow morning and running a 10K. 6 days later, they come out here to the same start line for 100 miles on foot. Still blows me away. 6 days later,
Hadi, remember how last episode you were talking about how your NVG23 wheels could take a serious beating? I got to admit, I was absolutely busting at the seams wanting to talk about my own G23 experience.
All right, so that means you bought a gravel bike.
No, I have not bought a gravel bike. I did, however, custom order a set of G23 rims with i9 mountain bike hubs. A couple of weekends ago, they arrived, and that was just in time for the 12 Hours of Mesa Verde, which has some seriously rocky, chunky sandstone and granite sections, along with any number of ledge drops onto rock. And I raced these rims at that race on my mountain bike for 4 laps, and they were perfect. No flats, no problems.
Well, that's not exactly what the G23 wheels are for, Fatty.
No, they are not. That's what the M5 wheels are for. Mountain bike racing, a rocky technical course on Envy's gravel wheels was a stunt, truly. Partially so I could race an 18.5-pound hardtail, but mostly to show that Envy's gravel wheels are tough or tougher than most companies' downhill wheels. Their impact numbers actually bear that truth out. And if that's the case, you can be pretty confident in racing Leadville on the wheels that are actually built for anything our listeners might throw at them on the Leadville race course in their Leadville training.
To be clear, we are not recommending gravel rims on your mountain bike for the Leadville 100. We are not. But you can expect extraordinary toughness and lightweight from Envy wheels, when even their gravel wheels are plenty strong enough to handle some very chunky terrain. Be sure to check out Envy's M5 wheels at Envy, that's ENVE.com. And if you're going to do the lead boat, the G23 has our vote of confidence for the Steamboat Gravel Race as well.
One last thing before we get to Heath again, Hadi. We're getting to the point here where if you're going to start designing your own kit in time for the Leadville 100, you need to get going.
Yeah, it can be a little daunting to work on a kit design from scratch, and that's where DNA really shines. You don't need to know anything about design. You don't need to deal with massive ordering quantities. You don't need to build your own store or collect money. You don't even have to do the fulfillment.
Nope. All you got to do is fill out a very brief custom apparel inquiry form, and then a real person gets a hold of you. Imagine real people. They find out what you're after, and then they guide you through every single step of your kit creation, from what your catalog is going to contain, to what your design is going to be, to patterns, to quality control, to a store page, to fulfillment, everything.
And your kit's going to look great. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to be unique. And it's going to come to you and your team without having you to live through a product management nightmare.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Go get started at dnacycling.com. Just click custom apparel. And honestly, you've done the hardest work you're going to have to do in this process.
Okay, our guest is Heath Speckman, a Leadville local legend who makes the most out of living at 10,000 feet.
2020 is no story at all for most of us. But for you, I would say there's some of the most amazing Leadville stories and, creative, honestly, Leadville efforts that I could have ever heard of. And I really, that's what I want to center on. Tell us about your Everesting attempt. Tell us about your 100,000 foot challenge.
Yeah, I thought 2020 would be my redemption year. And so I hit the ground running pretty hard with preparing for Leadman again. And it was going really well. I was, the body was getting better with running. The bike was I was getting stronger on the bike too. And fitness was increasing, even though we were kind of at the early stages of the pandemic. So, but I trained on until I heard a hard no that the races would be canceled. So they told Leadman that first, because if the marathon wasn't going to happen, then there was going to be no Leadman. So we heard we're probably the first ones to know that all the races are canceled. And I don't know the exact timeline on this, but I think around that time is when Rebecca Rush was advertising her was a Giddy Up challenge for the Everesting. And I thought that was, okay, let's do that. I've never heard of it before, but it sounded really interesting. And they had different distances or different elevation gains you can sign up for. So the whole thing sounded really good, and decided to do that. And through some research on that, the idea of the Everesting is you pick a hill or some sort of segment and you repeat that until you achieve the elevation of Mount Everest, which is 29,000 feet and change. Yeah. And to also have a thought of doing something unique or special with it. So, I get all my great ideas while taking a shower. So I came out of the shower, the light bulb went off, and I said, Columbine would be amazing for Everesting. I was like, wow, that sounds terrible. So it must be a great idea. Right?
It's not a lie.
No. So that's where the idea started. So I called a couple of my friends who probably equally as crazy as I, and told them about this idea, and we kind of made a mini event out of it. We had quite a few people there. Even if they weren't signed up for the full Everest, they decided to join us. So I think there was me and two others total that were signed up for the full Everest and decided to try it on Columbine. Before starting it, we needed to find a turnaround point, because that time in Leadville, there's still quite a bit of snow to deal with. So we're thankful that there was enough climbing and enough of the roadway dried up to be able to do this. It wasn't to the normal turnaround point, because we had encountered snow it was just too much. We'd have to walk around it every time. It didn't make sense. So, however, we got about a 5 mile up point. So this was going from where that alternate aid station's at normally, and a little further up, there's a Forest Service sign with a little turnaround point, if you can think about it. And that's where
But still in the tree section, right? You're still in the trees there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You come into the alternate aid station and you go up maybe a half a mile, and there's a little turnaround point with a Forest Service sign. And there's a steep climb right before you get to the Colorado Trail. And that was part of our ride. So we started down pretty low, and then it went almost exactly 5 miles up. And there was a point where the road winds off near the private property up there. And that was our turnaround point. And what we did is we set up a pile of rocks. I brought up an American flag. I stuck it in the ground. And this being Memorial Weekend and my military service, I also used it as a point to honor some friends that aren't with us anymore. So, so we set that up, and we set up campers and everything. We kind of made an event out of it, like I said. And we started, I don't remember exactly. It might have been like 4 a.m. that morning, I believe Saturday morning. And the elevation gain per round, I believe, was about 3,000 feet. And the math on it came to about 14 times. We'd have to do Columbine.
Anyone who has done Columbine as part of this race, or as in preparation for this race, all of our heads just exploded. That is just, I can't find the words for the difficulty of the challenge that you've given yourself here.
Yeah.
How'd it feel?
Well, it was so outrageous. It was beyond the ability to understand how painful it could be. So it was, I guess, in that way, it made it kind of easy. Just didn't think about it. And you realize that, okay, here's the task at hand, and I'm just going to go do it one at a time. And, I got to tell you, the very last one, it was my 14th round. My watch was starting to die, and that was where everything was being recorded to make this Everest thing official. And so what I did was, plugged my watch in, at the truck during one of the feeds, and, got a quick charge on it. And I was like, okay, good to go. And, I went to go, this was at the, I guess the start of the goat trail. And, so that was this point where my wife can turn the truck around and go back down on, meet her back down, because I was almost to the top anyways.
Right.
And I would go ride that last section. And so I did. I got up to the top. I gave my final salute, grabbed the flag, and I was like, well, I wonder what time it is. And I went to look, and my watch was gone. I left it in the truck on the charger, and I had my phone with me. So I called my wife. I said, stop right where you're at. And you have my watch. And she's like, oh no. So I told her, just pause it and drive back up. I'll meet you at the exact same location, which she did. And I was like, I got to do this goat trail climb one more time to record it. Yeah, I know I did it, but you have to record it. So I went and did it for a 15th time. And pedaled to the top and got it all officially recorded and submitted. And I even did the whole the Hells 500 thing to get it officially recorded into the record books there. And so that's what I wanted to make sure it was actually recorded. It's a tough way to get to an amazing feeling, but it was pretty amazing. And so yeah, it took I was just under 24 hours. It was about 23 and a half hours.
That is good. I mean, that is impressively fast for the amount of vert at that altitude. I mean, Hadi, you remember how you feel once you cross, a certain point, and it's different for different people. And granted, Heath lives at altitude, but it's still, it still is a real kick in the teeth.
I think the science shows that you get above 11,000 feet and you reach another one of those punch in the gut spots from a cardiovascular standpoint. And that's, there's science, and then for individuals, they can vary by 100 feet, 200 feet, where that punch in the gut actually comes. But I think, for Heath, you should be really proud of that time. I don't remember Rebecca's exact time, but I do know she rode through the night. Like, she was out there a long time herself, trying to knock down an Everest challenge too. So you did a hell of a good job with that event.
How many miles was that? We know the altitude.
Yeah, it was 140 miles total.
Oh, goodness. Man, the outlandishness of the challenge you picked for yourself. It's a delight. It's all I can say. You are this podcast's kind of person, Heath. So, and you decided that's not enough. 2020 going pretty good so far, right? So tell us about what else you did for the 100,000 foot challenge that happened in lieu of the Leadville 100 last year.
Yeah, so that was announced after Everesting, which would have been nice to include there because I would have had a good head start. But so that was announced, and I was on a roll with ideas. So I figured, how can I make this unique too? And I live in Leadville. This is for the challenge, and I thought, gosh, there's a lot of people that would love to come to Leadville this year and race it. And I just thought, how can I make this unique and worthwhile? And I thought, so I did like to play around some numbers, 100,000 feet. And I'm thinking, the Leadville 100 course is, it's over 12,000 feet of climbing. And I thought, 12,500 is, you'd have to do that 8 times. And this is supposed to be an 8-week challenge. And that's when that after shower light bulb went off again. I was like, well, I'll do it once a week for 8 weeks and I'll get my 100,000 feet that way.
Yes, you will. I mean, for the folks who are listening to this show, some of you have done the Leadville 100, some of you haven't. For those of you who have, you remember how your legs feel after doing that race. For those of you who haven't, let me just assure you that your legs feel pretty bad for a few days. I'm just thinking about the recovery period in between each of those weeks for 8 solid weeks, Heath. And never mind just the intensity of the event on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's what it turned into. Initially I thought, oh, well, I'll try to keep up with some training in between. And I quickly learned that would not happen. It was more of a, you do the ride, you recover, and then you prepare for the next week. And it was just that rotation. And, so I'm off Thursday through Saturday most weeks. And so it varied what day I would do it each week. Definitely preferred to do it on a Thursday or Friday with less traffic out there. Don't have to worry about cars on the road and things like that. So that's when we tried to do it. I had a good friend of mine, David Curtis, who joined me for a lot of them. He ended up doing quite a bit of them because I brought the idea to him. I brought the idea to the other people. I did the Everest, and I think a lot of them blocked my number after Everest. And but he kept my number for some reason, and he joined me for a lot of them, not all of them, but he got a big chunk of them done with me. So we would go. There's a church right down the road that we go to on 6th Street, and that was our meet point. So we'd meet there whatever day we chose for that week, and we'd start at 6 a.m. And for that cold morning start, and we did this all summer, and it's always cold in the start of the. It's just such a cold start.
And a direct copy of the course. I mean, there's a section of the course that is not open except for on race weekend, but otherwise it was a direct copy of the course we all know.
It sure was. Yep. So yeah, going around that private property in that section right before Columbine makes the Leadville 100 plus, Leadville 100 plus plus. So it was about 108 miles each week total.
Yeah.
And elevation was about, after I learned, I think from you guys, the elevation adjust on Strava, it came to a pretty steady 12,200 feet of climbing every week. So that was going to put me a little short, and I knew this going into it. About halfway through this 8-week period, I had signed up for the Telluride 100. And I did that. That was a miserable race. It was cold and rainy the whole time, but got that in. But I stuck true to my guns, and I didn't include that elevation gain. I wanted to be 100% Leadville. So I finished up that, but still put me a little short. So I figured, well, what's a better way to finish up these last 3,000 feet than to go do Columbine one more time? So I threw that in there.
You have a problem.
I know. I know. But,
I was thinking, do the Boulevard a couple of times. That would be a good way to do it. But no, you said, no, I think I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and do the iconic climb. And man, I love that, and just don't want to ride with you ever. It's
just, don't answer my calls.
Yeah. I'm putting you on the do not disturb list.
Can I also give a shout out to my wife and kids? And
sure.
And I know I said a little bit about them, but they were a support crew for all of this stuff that, during 2020. They would meet me in multiple locations during the 100-mile efforts, and they, would provide supplies and cheer, and like they were all the above for me. And I really think they deserve to that acknowledgement.
Yeah. Makes all the difference in the world. So how old are your kids?
It's 7 and 12.
Good. So a lot of help from the wife and from the kids. Yeah, you can be grateful for that, for sure. So an amazing 2020. You are the guy who takes lemons and made lemonade. So we got to know, what is your 2021 plan?
So I'm on the schedule for Leadman, and just training hard for that. I want to do as well as I can now that I have a healthy body. My ankle feels better than ever. I don't think it'll ever be 100%, but I can go for a long run and not limp for the next 2 days. So just trying to stay healthy, and I'm going to approach each race and do it as fast as I can and see what I can do. So
the way we came across you, Heath, is we asked Brian Fedema at Cycles of Life, who are the local Leadville Trail 100 legends? Like, who are the real badasses there who race this thing a lot? And your name came up. Now, I don't, look, you have a good record in the mountain bike race. You've got a gold buckle. Well done. That's excellent. But I think what Brian was trying to tell us is, this guy is a badass, not so much for the Trail 100, but for all this other stuff that you do. This challenge, this 100,000 foot challenge, the Everesting challenge, the Leadman, the sticking with it attitude. It seems like you bring the whole package to the idea of living in Leadville and embracing altitude and challenge in that area.
Yeah, I think it's this is such a cool town, and it was a pretty immediate at home feeling for me and my family, and it's just full of people that love to get outdoors and enjoy challenges. And I'm by no means a standout, I feel like, in this town here or anywhere else really, but this town is just full of amazing people, and I've really enjoyed my time here. Mm-hmm.
So tell us, what is it like to be a local in Leadville, and especially what is it like when you go to sea level? I mean, do you feel like Superman when you go to sea level?
Right. I guess I don't get down enough to really get a feeling for it. But yeah, when we go down to Arizona or whatever for a race, it's I usually actually end up pretty sore because my body can handle the extra speed, but I don't think the muscles are really prepared for it. But yeah, there's you hear Ken and Marilee talk about the grit that this town provides, and that really comes from that year-round living up here. It's a long, brutal winter with a lot of snow, and fighting through that year after year has been, in a way, an enjoyable challenge.
Are you do you ride in the snow? What do you do when there's 10 feet of snow outside in Leadville? How do you keep the body moving?
Yeah, the Fat Bike series actually up here keeps us moving, as soon as we can, as soon as there's enough snow. The trails are groomed. Sterling with Cloud City Wheelers keeps up with all that. And it's just really a fat biking paradise, in my opinion. So I'm able to keep up with the biking throughout there, indoor training too, to keep the legs spinning when after a fresh snow. But excuse me. Yeah, still a lot of options in the winter.
So for 2021, what is your hoped for finish time for the Leadville 100 mountain bike race, but also, I'm sure you've been thinking about this a lot, for the running race? Yeah,
for the bike, I'm going to shoot for under 8 hours this year. It's my goal there, and
wow,
I think numbers are leading me to believe that's possible. So we'll see. And then I would love to get the big buckle in the run also, which would be under 25 hours. So I'm hopeful on those fronts. That would be
an amazing upgrade in terms of belt hardware. I am absolutely going to be watching that virtual tracker that shows as you cross the various mats. Everyone who is listening to this show, I am sure, is going to be rooting for you big time. Heath, you're amazing. You're Leadville times 10, dude. It is just such a pleasure to hear your incredible story and your, I guess, inability to say no to anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've had some, the support that my family allows me to go do these things that kind of fill a need in my heart, and they enjoy it too. My kids have been getting out riding and even started doing some racing. And so I see a positive effect on the family too. And again, there's just this crew in Leadville here is pretty awesome.
Heath, we could probably do a whole show on your time in the Air Force, by the way. You wrote us a nice little outline of your time in the Air Force and what that meant to you and what some of your colleagues meant to you there. And you also mentioned there how you planted a flag on Memorial Day during your Columbine climbs. I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if you wanted to remember anybody that is close to you and that you use as inspiration as you take on some of these challenges?
Yeah, there's one specific story that comes to mind that while I was stationed up in Anchorage, Alaska, I had gained a few qualifications that allowed me to do some unique deployments. So I wasn't on a routine deployment schedule with my squadron at the time. But during one of their trips, our team got hit by an IED. And so we lost a couple of guys that day, and I wasn't there. So that had a strong hit on me for my life. And so they keep me going. I think about them a lot. I've lost others, unfortunately. There's another one that comes to mind. He had a rough go in the military, had some mental struggles, and ended up taking his own life. And, so they've done so much for our country. They had a strong influence on me. And so, I wish they were still around for me to thank them for what they did for me. And so this is my way of reminding myself of how fragile life can be, how important it is to just, love one another, your family, friends, people around you. And so, I honor them in a lot of the stuff I do.
That's right. Well, we want to thank you too for serving the country and continuing to be there on the front lines for us. I know 2020 was just a crazy year for anybody in public service, anybody in law enforcement, anybody in the medical industry, and of course your time with the Air Force, invaluable to this country and to us. And so, Fatty and I want to personally thank you for that. And we'll be thinking about your buddies too. I mean, you told us about their story here in your note to us. Amazing stuff. We'll keep them obviously in our thoughts as we continue to do the show and race the Leadville Trail 100. So thanks, Heath, for all that you've done for us.
I appreciate that.
Man, I'm excited to see you in Leadville.
Me too. Look forward to seeing you guys in person and hopefully to get to do some riding together. We'll keep it casual. We won't have to do anything crazy.
Yes. No challenges, Heath.
Yeah.
There'll be no challenges the week of Leadville Trail 100. We're going to keep it like on the Mineral Belt Trail. Yep. Is that okay with you? Are you fine with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you okay? Okay.
I will throw in another story real quick if we have time. I was just, if you guys haven't been on the Mineral Belt in a while, they put up a couple like Sasquatches. Have you guys seen those?
I haven't.
No. Yeah. There's 2 of them and I've seen them 100 times and every time they still make me jump. It looks like a big bear or something there. And it still gets me, but, thinking about back to the Everest challenge, I had, this was probably close to midnight and I'd been going for a while and I was up near where, I guess I was probably just a mile or 2 from the top. So I was pretty high up and there's some private property up there with a couple structures. There's a house or whatnot. And, so I was riding and, I look off in the distance and I see a light and my mind immediately puts together a figure of a Sasquatch. And I look again and there's 3 of them. There's 3 Sasquatches wearing headlamps and they're just hiking through the woods. And I was so terrified about this scene that I accelerated and I looked back and I was like, there's no way that they don't exist. There's nothing. And I looked back again, I saw them again, I turned and I was pretty scared. And then I realized that it was the house with its lights on and everything's okay. Just keep pedaling. And so it's funny, the things your mind will start playing tricks on you.
Oh yeah. Any of us who have ever done a long ride, 24-hour plus type stuff, we're familiar with hallucinations.
They're real. Yeah.
You saw the Sasquatch. That's fantastic. Wearing headlamps.
A little more on Heath. He did some boxing in the Air Force, and one day he and a buddy were approached by a promoter about doing some MMA, mixed martial arts fighting. Fatty, you can probably guess what our guest did.
Oh, yeah. He, of course, accepted. He got in the ring for a 3-round amateur event, and as you might expect for Heath, he did win. Unlike the Leadville 100 or Leadman, however, Heath could not be convinced to go and keep doing that thing. Good for him. Still, he is he's officially undefeated, I should say, at mixed martial arts at 1-0. The stories with this guy, they just keep coming from him.
Yeah, a terrific guest. Again, thanks to Heath Speckman for joining the show. You know, Shimano is in the midst of a centennial celebration. And for a company with some well-known highlights, the big things are easy to remember. Derailleurs, shifters, chains, cassettes, hubs, components galore.
Yeah, and I love everything that they make for my bike. It's easy to overlook, though, some of the other great products Shimano makes under its Pro line. Saddles are the number one thing in this. I use the Griffin on the road and the Griffin off-road. I love this saddle, Hottie. It has been so long since I have had a saddle rail break. It has been so long since I've had a sore post-ride butt. And a huge part of why is the Pro Griffin. It comes in multiple widths, has just the right amount of a center channel so you don't have pressure on your taint, and it is tapered just right so you can get off the back in technical descents or plant your butt on the saddle nose for a technical climb. I will simply not use any other saddle anymore. I know saddles are personal and everyone's got something that they love or hate, but I truly do recommend mountain bike racers give the Griffin Pro or the Pro Griffin off-road saddle a try.
Yeah, the Pro line is like this buried Shimano treasure. You can find all sorts of cool extras for your bike in that sector of Shimano. Saddles, tools, bike bags, grips, bar tape, seat post clamps. Who knew? Actually, I knew because I always carry with me my Pro multi-tool chain, or rather multi-tool with chain breaker.
Yeah, it's high time we reveal Shimano's best kept secret. It is its Pro line of products and accessories. Really great stuff from a really great company. It's so good. It has its own website. Go to pro-bikegear.com to find all of the things here that we recommend. Let's go ahead and wrap this episode, Hottie. Big thanks to Heath Speckman, the most Leadvillain I think we have ever had on the show. But he has still not given us that secret get out of a ticket handshake. So obey the speed limit.
Yeah, we'll be looking for that when we get to Leadville, Heath. We're going to look you up, buddy. An amazing story from our season of storytellers. Listeners, if you like it too, let us know. Fatty's on Twitter at FenCyclist. I am on Instagram at Michael Houghton. Of course, we are both on that Facebook Leadville 100 mountain bike participants page. Share the love on whatever media you like.
And if you want to have a conversation, join our Slack channel. You're going to find a link to it over at Leadville100podcast.com. I pretty much have a Slack window open all the time. So if you want to talk, I'm right there.
If you like this show, go over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and write a review.
A nice one. Good luck in your training. Thanks so much for listening, and we're going to see you at the 2021 starting line.